Hello and welcome to Self Power Now, where empowering women share their stories and advice about life, work, happiness, love, and success. I'm your host, Debbie Giussoni, and I'm so glad you're here with us today. So sit back and enjoy the show. Today, we're talking to my good friend, Carol Simone, who is simply called Simone. Simone's been in private practice for almost 40 years as a meditation teacher, hypnotherapist, reiki master, clairaudient medium, and metaphysician. She is the author of several novels and CDs and co-hosts a YouTube show with Dorthy Tyo, who was just a guest on the Self Power Now podcast. The show is called, get ready for this, Two Ancient Semi-Enlightened Broads Schmooze on Life and Beyond. I love it. All of Simone's work is devoted to Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, poet, and peace activist who has since passed, and Quan Yin, the goddess of compassion. Welcome, Simone.
Thanks, Deb. It's just fantastic to connect with you. I love your show. I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. Well, that intro is a very, very abbreviated version of your talents and skills, which I don't think the intro did justice to, because you have had so many accomplishments, including being one of my first meditation and spiritual teachers way back, 20 years ago or so. And I thank you for that.
Thousands of years ago.
Do you remember that those were just such good times? We used to just sit around in our little women's groups and meditate and loved it.
Yeah, I look forward to every time you showed up because the room would get brighter and it was really fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, since you can speak about so many topics, before this podcast, I asked you to pick one that you're really high on right now. And you chose Oneness, which is another book that you're recently completing right at this time. So it's probably top of mind. And one of the things I love about you is your ability to embody unity consciousness, or as many call it, oneness. And to me, I've always thought of oneness as the force behind all life that connects us all, what makes us similar rather than different. What exactly does oneness mean to you? How would you describe it?
Well, I think oneness is love. And I think that is the force that unites all of us.
Yes.
Always moving through us. It's the light that moves through us, coming from the very source that creates everything. And as a medium, my life for the last, maybe 50 years, really, I've been doing it, has to do with allowing that force of energy that takes a peach pit and grows a peach to move through me so that I can remember that I'm a part of all things, that this idea of separation is merely an illusion. It's a man-made concept that divides us and keeps us in categories and caste systems. And, it's the mind doing its work about, I'm special. No, I'm not. All the different ways, mind will go. In oneness, there is no separation. There is the knowing that we are all born from each other, no matter how dark or light the situation is, that we all have an aspect of whatever's in front of us within us. And that is projected out. And we call that the world.
I love that you equate it with love, because I also believe once you strip away all the character and the personality and the looks and all the outer appearances that we came here to play, those characters we came here to play, what's left is the same in every single person. And that is pure love. And that's
every single thing.
Every single thing. Absolutely.
Animals,
every single thing.
All of us.
Yes.
But you see, the mind gets so involved with, but wait, that's an animal. That's different than me. Or that's a flower. How can it be speaking to me the way it is? Or that's the ocean. But when you really move into oneness, it's really giving up your fear about being amidst and knowing that everything that's out there in the world is a part of yourself, and it's a projection that's going out into the world. To say that easier, I become everything. I become everything around me. I'm free to love everyone, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done or what they felt, or whether it's a dog looking into my eyes, or a baby, or it's a tulip, or whatever, a big tree. that everything's alive and everything is totally interconnected.
I love that you mentioned a flower, because I remember in our meditation, sometimes you would say, I want to just be a flower. And we
Mhm.
did some meditations where we became the flower, but it does speak to oneness in terms of transcending and uniting all of everything, humanity, regardless of, race, gender, religion, culture, and things in nature and anything that's living, uniting it's all. And it's the common thread in all humanity, showing us that we are more same than different. And if we all get to that point, right, wouldn't it eliminate a lot of the feeling of aloneness, of separation, and of hate in the world?
Well, and it's so interesting because people always ask me, how do I find that oneness? And my answer is, how do you not find it? It
Well,
is.
you're so evolved.
Oh, no, not at all. It's just that I've had, I have had an opportunity to become things in life, to become different aspects, and I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of, having floating like a cloud. I'm not afraid of working shamanically and moving into the body of a tiger, because I know that they're just like me. They have a nervous system, they can breathe, and they can love. And that's all I need to know. And I believe that about everything.
And
I
all you have to do is look at animal. I was just watching a documentary on the national park system, and they featured a lot of animals in the wild. And you see the
wonderful.
connection that
Uh,
animals have, even with different species, not their own,
uh,
where they help each other out. They, someone, and they don't, fight, and they don't devour each other,
that's
and
right.
it's just beautiful. And how, families live together, and mothers support their children, and fathers protect. And it's just so, so beautiful to see how in nature, everything does have this symbiotic sort of relationship, and work together very, very easily.
Well, I just believe that you have to have courage to know that you're at one with everything.
Yes,
Maybe that's best seen through this poem of Thich Nhat Hanh that I'd love to read.
absolutely. Let's hear it.
I mean, it's hang on to your hats, folks, because
Well,
Thich Nhat-
actually, I should say for people listening, why don't we all try to be present?
yes,
Why don't we all try to be present? Why don't we all take a deep breath, and, stop looking at your phone and doing other things and multitasking, and let's just really tune into these words, because if you really want to get to a place of love in your life, that's where oneness exists.
and I
And
yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say Thich Nhat Hanh was my is my heart. He's the
Mm.
sunflower of my heart, and I learned more from him through his teachings than I've ever learned through any other experience except for embodying Quan Yin.
And he
And
was also famous for his, was it the walking meditation?
at walking meditation, he coined the phrase mindfulness years and years and years ago.
Mm.
And I believe he's at the core center. I believe he is an embodiment of Kuan Yin, who is this incredible bodhisattva teacher um, of the light and compassion, who would not leave totally the earth until all suffering was dissolved. And so, he was so incredibly fearless. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Martin Luther King. He was an activist. He lost all of his temple and all of his monks and nuns during the Vietnam War. And yet he came to the United States to take care of the Vietnam vets here.
Mm. Mm.
So he would just keep showing us over and over again, stop blaming, stop
Yeah.
shaming, forgiveness, compassion. These are the ways to be in the world. And I believe this poem embodies all of that. It's my favorite poem. But I
And you
just,
gave me a book of his once that I have still many years now ago, and I still have at my little nightstand by where I meditate, and I read something from it every single day, and it's just profound.
well, yesterday, I said this to you, I don't know if I did or not before, but I remembered that one of the last things he just passed, and
Yeah.
one of the last things that he reminded us is that we all have the same address here, here,
Planet Earth, is that the address?
here and now.
Here and now. I love it. I love it. Well, why don't you recite the poem and let's everybody in the audience really maybe even close your eyes and listen to these words and see if you can feel the love behind all things.
And feel the courage of this poem. So it's called Please Call Me by My True Names. Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply every second. I am arriving to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive. In order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope, the rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am a mayfly metamorphosizing on the surface of the river, and I'm the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am a frog swimming happily in a clear water of a pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks. And I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl refugee on a small boat who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am also the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up and the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion.
Wow.
It takes courage to move beyond categories and judgment and comparison and the fear that, someone's different because they don't look like us or speak like us or growl like us or bloom like us. We're all working together in this incredible flow when we do that. But it's a challenge, it's a practice every moment, because the media, our families sometimes, our education, our religions, all of these are always looking, not always, I don't want to use that's a child's word. They're often looking for ways to differentiate us. And it's the differentiate us that scares us and makes and helps, forge that belief that we're alone. We are never alone. We are always connected to the light, always.
Right. And the other thing that strikes me about that poem is, and I kind of say it a different way when I, counsel people or talk about, kind of life on earth and say, everybody has this part that they're playing in this particular lifetime, but we've all played all the parts.
Absolutely.
We've been the murderers and the rapists, and we've evolved, maybe
Yes.
we've evolved beyond that, but some people are still, choosing that part. And when you think of it that way, it makes loving everyone so much easier because, as the poem says, I am that. You are everything. You are nothing and you are everything. And you are everybody has a part of everyone else in them. So
and I accept that.
Yes.
And I love that aspect of my knowing that I am you, the darkest soul I could ever meet. I have that in me as well, or it would not exist. And I am here to heal that. And as I heal that within myself, it heals the planet.
Right. And if you were that dark soul in this lifetime, wouldn't you want healing? Wouldn't you want love projected at you from the person sitting across from you?
Well, we would hope that, yeah.
Well, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. I
Well,
mean, I know a lot of this is like these concepts that, because we talk about multiple lives here, and these are some concepts that maybe are new to some people. Why is going towards this belief of unity consciousness being important and oneness being important, why is it important for each of us individually to start exploring this and to perhaps uh, be a little bit more loving to one another and understanding to another in life?
because there isn't anything else but love. The rest is all made up. It's a big fiction, mind, man-made,
Yes.
who we have to be, what we have to look like, who's smarter, who,
Better, worse,
goes on and
taller.
on.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
just
I know.
one mind trap after another. So, you could look at the Ukraine and you could look at Russia, for instance. This is just another exercise in you're less than me. I'm going to dominate you.
Right.
I'm going to shame you, and you're going to give in to me. However, Ukraine is saying, look, we love our people and we love democracy, and we're going to stand up for this. And we are one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's really beautiful to watch. I mean, it's hideous and it's torturesome, but it's beautiful to see a real leader, someone who, he's just saying, we're moving forward in love. That's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take care of all of our people, and we're going to do that. I'm not saying they're not fighting and whatever. They have to do what they have to do. But my point is, there's another situation with division, and it happens all the time. We heal one area in the world and another one pops up.
Well, it's also, our lives are a microcosm of what's going on in the world.
Absolutely.
And everything that we project also gets projected to our families, our communities, our states, our
Absolutely.
countries, the
Absolutely.
world. So it's sort of like that butterfly effect, right? If a
Yep.
butterfly flaps her wings
Yep.
in the Amazon, it affects everything in the world. And once people understand that concept of connectivity, it becomes a little bit easier to love other people, to show love, to be love, to act from a source of love in whatever your actions are, your beliefs, or your behaviors. And I always say to people, life gets a lot happier when you're not fighting against,
That's
right?
right.
Fighting against, whether that's people in your own little circle or whether it's countries against countries. And that's why it has an effect on the world as well, as we increase our consciousness and our ability to connect and believe, even if you just don't feel it, but believe in the concept of oneness, it makes life better for everyone.
Oh, it's everything. Otherwise, you're living in the illusion that we're separate, and there isn't any.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, and the concept is there. It's hard for people. And I know for me over the course of my life, it's been hard for me to say, yeah, we're all one and I should really like this person that's being terrible to me or whatever. What are some of the tools? How do we go about finding and supporting love and oneness in everything that we do in our lives?
well, I think the main thing is the first part is always quieting the mind.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's through meditation or walking, out in nature and allowing yourself to drink that in, going to the ocean, whatever it is that calms you down and helps you feel comfortable and safe within yourself.
Mhm.
That's number one, and helps you feel connected to the light, because this light is always pouring through us. It's what's breathing through us and keeping us alive.
Yeah. And
And
I think for a lot of people, I'm glad you mentioned things outside of meditation because not everybody goes to that place, but most people have something that they do or go to that makes them feel connected. That could be
some people just
gardening,
are gardening.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly
It
what I
could,
was gonna say.
or listening to Mozart.
That's what I was going to say, or Miles Davis.
we're on we're
Um,
on the
we're
same
right
wavelength.
together. Yeah, sometimes it's a massage.
Yeah, it's that special feeling where you feel like, oh yes, I am part of everything, and everything's part of me, and this it gives them their happy place,
I
right?
think the thing is you have to be willing to be alive to the point that you see that everything is alive. You
Hmm.
see, the problem is one of the biggest challenges on this planet, being an animal rights activist, is that most people don't want to recognize the consciousness and the nervous system of animals.
Mm.
We want to reduce them to commodities, let's say, and say they're not like us. When the truth is, they're just like us, totally. They are so emotion oriented, and you have to be willing to look at a flower and notice the way a flower moves in the wind and recognize the flower in yourself. Like I said to you, Debbie, what kind of flower are you? What would you say?
Oh, I love so many flowers. I'd probably say a sunflower.
Oh, I love sunflowers.
They're big and bold. And
Yep.
I remember a trip to Tuscany I took where there were just fields and fields of sunflowers. And wow, that was such a happy, like it just made me feel so happy to see them. And I have painted a huge sunflower on my fence in my
Oh,
backyard.
so
So
lovely.
I'd say that's probably one of my favorites.
So happy. And it
Yeah.
reminds me of one of my favorite books by Thich Nhat Hanh, which is No Mud, No Lotus.
Mm.
And if you watch the cycles of flowers, that's another thing that goes on with oneness. We're all, this whole thing about death that goes on in our society that we're scared of and all this stuff. I say we, but it's not everyone. If you watch the cycle of a flower from its birth all the way through, and the aspects, everything has challenges, everything is breathing and wanting to bloom and wanting to connect and contribute. Everything is everything. And if you go through life and you're not noticing the trees, and you're not for instance, if you're not watching the way branches move in the wind, or what the sky's trying to tell you, or what the clouds are imparting, or the way dirt feels under your feet, then
And
you
all of that takes being present with those. I mean, we
absolutely.
live life in such a big fat friggin' rush
Yep.
that we don't have the time, or we don't take the time. We have the time. We
Well,
just feel
it's
like we don't. We don't
priority.
take the time to notice.
Yeah. Well, it's a question of choosing.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
do you want to be awake? Do you want, I mean, sometimes people will say to me, gee, this thing about being on a spiritual path and feeling at one with everything, it's not that much fun sometimes. Because uh, a great deal of the population isn't heart connected that way, isn't soul connected yet.
Yeah.
I believe we're all here to bring that consciousness in, and that it will happen, whether it comes through COVID or however it comes, it's going to come until all of us wake up and realize that being at one with everything is what's going to save this. How come people don't get that the earth is at one with us and we're at one with the earth?
Yeah, the earth is taking care of us, and the trees give us oxygen and everything else. We had to, this weekend, we had to take a tree down in our backyard because
Oh
it was
God.
diseased. And it started getting diseased a few years ago. And we took off the part that, and it was because, I'm in California, as you know, as you are. And once we started having really bad droughts, this tree got some sort of disease because I probably wasn't getting enough groundwater or whatnot. And it was a sycamore tree, so not too large, but definitely not a small tree. And we had to take it down this weekend because we had tried and tried and tried, and it was finally just peeling away. And we had an arborist here, and they said, yeah, there's no saving it at this point. And I felt so bad. I just sat there and I just thanked the tree. Thank you for all the years that you were here. And I'm sorry, but we tried to save it, but as you said, there's a cycle of life and death, and we just have to honor that. And especially for animals and pets and all of that as well.
I think too that we have to remember there's a much larger picture than what we see. And there may have been a part of that tree that created that circumstance that wanted out.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know how old it was.
Well, I don't know if that has anything to do with age. I
Right,
think,
it doesn't.
it just has to do with life lessons and experiences. And maybe that tree just, sometimes I look at what happens to elephants and tigers and what's going on in the world with whales and blah, 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 it goes on and on in the animal kingdom. And a part of me says, well, maybe they're tired.
Hmm.
Maybe they'd like to go out for a while. And maybe because, that's a whole other topic. But
Right.
the other side is pretty beautiful. For those of you that are out there listening that know this, or have had a death experience, or have been with people when they passed and whatever, it's not that's not the worst thing that can happen to that tree.
Right. Exactly.
Or for us,
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
it brings up loss.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, those people who have had like near death experiences, they have that feeling of, peace and love. They actually feel it. I have not had that kind of experience, but I will say that on a 5-day silent retreat that I went to a few years back, I had a similar experience where I just transcended my body and I was just part of the whole. And that whole was this
Beautiful.
beautiful feeling of light, like pulsating light and movement and color and peace and love. And it was only for a few seconds, but I thought, oh, that's what's there
That's
beyond my sight.
that's oneness.
Yes.
That's what you went to. Every night before I go to sleep, besides doing a sort of a clearing of all the different fields around my body, because I've been out there in different realms with clients, I always say, Spirit, let me for a moment remember at the deepest levels what it's like before I came in and what it will be like when I leave. And
Mm.
let me just embody the light. And I lie there and, you know, it's gotten to the point now that my body just drops away to the side, just like a piece of satin or silk blowing away from my
Mhm.
body. And I don't even feel my body. I just feel the bliss of being connected to the light. It's
Because the what you truly are, not the body, that's just the vehicle. You truly
that's
are that source of love from oneness, from
all we
creator, whatever you want to call it. And that's what we all are. What about like, I mean, you're so in tune with, that the mystical and the intuition and the other side. What about for people who, they haven't had a mystical experience? They're just sort of learning about a lot of this. How, I think making a statement before you go to bed is actually a really nice probably a useful tool you can do, because I think in our sleep time, we actually do travel to other realms. Are there
are.
any other things that you help people in terms of getting to that space of seeing the bigger picture?
Well, I think again, there's no better source of that than nature.
Yes.
And walking, it doesn't mean you even have to leave your home. If you have a backyard, all you have to do is kick off your shoes and walk slowly in your backyard and let your feet absorb the energy of the earth, because the earth is holding all of it. It's holding all of our energies.
Mhm.
It's one
There's
of
a
the reasons.
pulse. There's a pulse in that earth. Yes.
And that's a beginning of feeling the great pulse
Hmm.
of everything. And I think again, watching nature, watching the birds, I mean, it's a question of quieting down and allowing that you want that experience of feeling aligned to the world around you.
Yeah, I do that a lot. I just sometimes sit outside in my backyard and I just listen and watch. And
It's
it's
so
amazing
beautiful.
how many sounds are there if you just listen. Even if you live in a city, you can still hear birds,
Absolutely.
you can still hear wind, you can still hear leaves rustling on trees in the street. And it just makes such a difference. And then when I am out on a walk in the neighborhood, I'll see a beautiful flower and I'll talk to it. I'll say, "Thank you, flower. Thank you for your beauty."
Of course. And I think what keeps people out of that experience is that they're afraid that people will think they're nuts, or that what are you talking about? Because there's been so much conditioning that we're separate and that we're on different levels, and that sort of pseudo caste system
Mhm.
that goes on that way. And it takes courage. It took me a lot of years to be able to speak the way I do around oneness, because I was afraid that people wouldn't like me.
Mm.
And when you give up that fear finally and you realize, no, wait a minute, this is far more important than whether people like me or not. This is how people can heal the planet. This is if you can get people to give up their suffering and give up their fear of not being liked or being different, and quiet them down and let them go into becoming the ocean.
Mhm.
Let them lie down and give them a guided imagery where they go inside and they become the waves. They become the coolness of the water. They become the flow. They let themselves to go into that experience, and they understand that that peace that comes in is then transmitted out into the world as vibration, and it really has momentum. It has
And let alone, I mean, some people maybe will say, well, I don't care about the world, but it doesn't really matter if you don't care about the world, because you're going to be able to heal yourself and have
well,
a
you
happier
have to
life
heal
while you're
yourself
here.
first. You have to heal
You
yourself first.
have to heal yourself. Who was it that said, was it Gandhi? Peace in the world is going to first come from peace in the heart, in each
I-
and every individual heart.
I'm not sure, but they're
one of those
Rumi,
guys.
one of the great ones. I don't know.
Oh, speaking about Rumi, you just lost your pet named Rumi. Let's talk a little bit about pets, because I think that pets, but dogs and cats in particular, do teach us a lot about what love is and what oneness is.
Well,
How does
first of
Yeah,
all, I never lost Rumi.
yeah, he's still, yeah,
I
yeah.
said it
His
myself.
physical body, his
Yeah.
physical, yeah.
And I did cry a lot, even though I could feel him next to me.
Mm.
Um, how do you want me to phrase this? What do you want me to talk about with the
Well, I also
You
lost,
lost yours too.
yeah, I mean, we've lost pets along the way. We've lost 5 Siberian Huskies at
Yep.
this point in terms of them being in the physical. But if you have a pet, I mean, is that a good way to start to understand?
Well, I'm smiling at you when you ask me this. It's so funny. You and I both know. I think the most profound moments, besides being with my teachers and out in nature, is lying on the floor across from my dog,
Mm,
Rumi, and looking into his eyes, and both of us getting very quiet, and just that incredible knowing that passes between two souls, that has no category attached to it. No, we're just two beings, and we're just loving each other. And that aspect, that flow of energy meant more to me, saying it even now. And just before he passed, he was in the back seat of the car with me, and he was really pretty sick. And he looked up at me for one moment, and he looked into my eyes, and I'm not kidding, for at least a minute and a half. And what transmitted in that was such deep love and connection. I don't think I've ever had besides, the work I've done with Quan Yin, I don't think I've ever had that with any human, because humans are much more dilated until we decide we don't want to be that way
well,
anymore.
they're also more judgmental. I mean, the
Yeah.
pet doesn't care what the color of your skin is,
No.
where you live, what your clothes look like, how your hair came out that day. Your pet
Exactly.
doesn't care. Your pet knows your soul. And
Yep.
that's why I mentioned pets, because I think if you want to start somewhere, as nature's a good spot too, but you love your pet so
Oh,
much that if you could just
and
see that
everybody
love.
listening to this knows this, Debbie.
Yes.
Everybody listening to know this who has an animal knows this. They've already experienced it with their high self, with a part of themselves that's not, that's connected to their
Right.
higher.
Maybe not consciously, but
Yeah,
definitely on a subconscious level.
they know it in their heart, and when they hear these words, a part of them knows.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
good to remember that, because I don't know, there's so many wonderful videos now of, lions getting along with ducks, getting along with.
Yes. Yes. I love watching those.
Why can't we do this?
Right. Right.
Because we have these minds that keep trying to separate us out, so that we feel secure that we're different and we're special and we're this and we're that. It's such a bunch of, hooey.
I know. Well, I always say that my dogs are so much more evolved because
That's
of
right.
that.
Oh,
And I also tell people, hey, look, if you want self-love in your life, treat yourself as you would your dog. If you want more love in your life, treat everyone around you as you would your dog. Look at them as you would your dog.
people
Because
often say to me, next time I want to come back as your dog.
oh yeah, I get that a lot. I get that a lot.
Well, look how we treat. Look how we've been with them. I mean, my God, this is like a hotel over here at my house.
They're like, I know they are like our children. We've always treated ours like children and part of
Yep.
the family, and
Well,
just honored them and respected them and gave them
and I
as much
believe
as we
they
could.
come to teach us, no
Oh
matter what
yes.
form they take, no matter what form they take.
I
I
think they choose us.
Oh, I do too. And
Yeah.
I believe we choose them too. I believe it's all pre-contracted before we come in. But I feel that, that what I learned in those few moments with Rumi before he passed gave me everything I needed to know about love. And he transmitted it to me.
Mhm.
There it is.
And you can get that transmission from nature. You can get
Oh,
it from music. You can get it from so many
you
things.
get
If
it
you
from
just,
food.
yeah. Oh my gosh. I definitely am Italian. I
You
definitely
are
get it
you
from
are the
food.
cook of
I mean,
cooks.
I have a thank you list every night before I go to bed. And I will say every single night, I remember everything I put in my mouth, every piece of
Now,
food.
what
And I
the
say, thank you, thank you, thank you for everybody involved in bringing that food to my table. Because as you know, there's a
Yep.
chain of
Oh, well,
people and
there is.
conditions and climate and soil. It's so much that brings that food to your table. And we take it for granted, especially in developed countries like where we live
Yep.
in. We
Yep.
take all of that for granted. And I never want to take food for granted because I love it so much.
It brings up gratitude. And sometimes when I tell people this, it really helps them. When I take a shower, after I've taken the shower, before I turn off the water, I say, thank you, Spirit, for this water. May there be enough water, food, safety, kindness,
Mm,
connection, love, clothing, blankets, heat and cold where it needs to be, sanitation for every living thing.
hmm Yeah,
And,
we take so
and we
much for
start
granted.
with
I
me.
actually have, thank you. I have these little labels that I have by my faucets, by my shower faucet that says, thanks, thanks, love.
Yep. That's what it is. It's all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were asking before, how can people begin? It's in looking at your world and being grateful
hmm
because, I heard myself saying last night, I don't like these black beans that I'm eating. And then another part of me said, do you know there are people in the world that they would love to have
Yes.
one black bean? And
You're right.
shifts your consciousness into going into them for a minute. And that opens the oneness door because you
Mm.
can't really experience oneness without wanting to walk into the shoes of others
hmm
without the judgment piece.
Right. And for those people in your life that you have a strong judgment about whether you know them personally or not, for me it helps to say, okay, if I was that person, what am I struggling with? Did I have a bad childhood? Did I,
Mm,
come in with a predisposition?
yeah.
Um, and try to put yourself, I hate to use the cliche, but try to put yourself in their shoes and have compassion for those people that seem to be, in their character in this play, behaving badly. Okay.
It,
Because
re-
we're all evolving.
it reminds me so much of Suzanne Dion, who's a great friend of mine and designer of my website and everything. She's a fantastic artist, but she's also an Enneagram teacher. And she was going into San Quentin. She's a beautiful woman. And she would go into San Quentin by herself and
Mm,
go into a room with, I don't know, 35, 50 of the murderers, rapists, people that have just, they're in there for life. And she would ask each one, and she would not allow a guard in that room because it changed the whole energy. And
mhm.
nothing inappropriate ever happened to her. And she would ask them right off the top, and what happened to you? And when she would hear their stories, her whole nervous system would calm down and she would feel so safe with them. She would just, you know, be able to move in and out of their consciousness. And that helped her be able to be in that room and help them. That's oneness.
Yeah.
Same
Oh,
with Dr.
that's
Hugh
beautiful.
Lin and Dr. Hugh Lin, who founded Ho'oponopono. I don't know if you know that story. It's short. I'll tell it to you if you would like to hear it.
Sure. Let's hear it.
Dr. Hugh Lin is a psychologist, I believe. He might be a psychiatrist. I can't remember now, but he was stationed he was living on Oahu and very sensitive. And he would teach this 4 lines that he believes changes the whole structure of the planet and our cellular level. And that is, I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. Thank you. He believes those 4 statements, when said over and over again, clear your own auric field and they clear the planet. So anyway, so he's sitting in his office one day and somebody calls him up on the phone and says, we'd like you to come over to such and such hospital, mental hospital, and we'd like you to work with these severely mentally ill patients. And he said, well, I couldn't, thank you for offering, but I couldn't go in the room with them. I'm way too sensitive. But if you'll give me their files, I will ho'opono the situation. He said it his own way. I will use my own way of dealing with their challenges. and I'll see what I can do. So I think there were 23, 24 of these people that were majorly challenged. And he took their files and he worked with them. Each file, he would say hundreds of times, I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you. All of them were released in a year.
Wow.
So that's how he would enter their field, and he would work with them, clearing and cleaning whatever had happened to him in other lifetimes and in this lifetime. It takes courage to have oneness. And that's
Yes.
the kind of courage that will change this planet. It will shift the consciousness of this planet. It took courage to go through COVID. You know,
I don't know that we're even through it yet.
well, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be through it unless we get enough courage to shift the energy.
Right. Right.
So, it's all happening for a reason. And but my point is, gosh, this planet always has so many challenges. My spirit, one of my early spiritual teachers used to say it's the kindergarten of the constellations out there.
The hardest classroom, of course.
It's so difficult here. How many times do you wake up and you go, I fell on the wrong planet?
But you know what? Yeah, you know what helps? You didn't to know that you didn't fall on the wrong planet, that you actually chose to be here.
And you have something to give.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
so wonderful. I wouldn't want to be any other place, really.
Well, I have one last question to ask you, since you asked me what flower would I be? What flower would you be, Simone?
Probably a gardenia.
Any particular color? Are they white? Are they white all the time?
It's because they embody a femininity to me that's so luscious and rich, and I really like them. I'm kind of almost allergic to them because when I get
You like them too much.
When I was a child, when I was a teenager, my dad used to take me to Trader Vic's in New York, and we would get these Mai Tais, and in the center of all of this booze, rum, etc., would be this floating gardenia. And it was so beautiful. And the smell of the rum and the gardenia was, I was just a teenager, but I would then they would drink the drink and I would get the gardenia and put it in my hair. And I remember thinking, this is life.
Oh. Well, when smells from our childhood really have a visceral effect throughout our life.
Huge, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that is just beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, so fun to talk with you,
presence. Deb. Yeah, this was so fun. Thank you for all your insight. And I hope the viewers will start noticing things around them to connect them with oneness. Listeners, you can. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, also on my website, I have lots of references for all kinds of things like this.
Yes. And you can, the listeners can find links to connect with you and your website, or they could hear more shows or sign up for free programs on selfpowernow.com/guide. For example, if you're looking to have more love and better relationships in your life, who isn't? Join my free 5-day self-love challenge, or come on my monthly Zoom love-in where you can actually ask me questions live. That page again is selfpowernow.com/guide. I wish you all a wonderful day. Simone, I wish you just beautiful, beautiful work that you're doing, and the continuance of doing that, and come back and join us again.
Thank you for doing this wonderful podcast, Debbie.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Self Power Now. If you enjoyed today's show, please share it with others, follow it on your favorite podcast platform, and join our community on selfpowernow.com and receive 3 free happiness gifts. And while you're there, if you're looking for more ways to be happy, healthy, peaceful, and loved, check out my books and new online courses. Until next time, this is Debbie Jasoni wishing you self-power now.